What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and welcome to episode 17 of my Sunday series, The Knife Guy. If you are new to my channel or you just came out of some weird corner of the internet and you have no idea where you are or who I am a knife enthusiast, knife collector, knife user. I am a knife guy. I became obsessed with this hobby over 10 years ago, and now I'm talking into a camera on a YouTube channel. So... we all become different types of knife guys and gals as we go through this crazy hobby. But you know, a lot of times our paths sort of intersect, and there's a lot of experiences that we all share. Things that happen, you know, as we go down these roads, and we're like, oh yeah, you know, I've totally been there. What I like to do in this series is kind of just pick up some of the knives that we've talked about in recent weeks, or that I'm about to talk about, and just give you guys something to watch and talk about things that we've all experienced in one way, shape, or form. Not everybody arrives at exactly the same place in exactly the same way, but generally speaking, you know, the topics in this series are things that we've all experienced. If you are brand new to my channel, I like to do daily knife-related content uploads. I like to do overviews and reviews. I like to do unboxings. I like to do discussion topics. And I have this Knife Guy series every single Sunday. So if you like daily knife content and that all sounds good to you, go ahead and subscribe and turn notifications on, or set them to all, because there's definitely more content coming. Something that I wanted to talk about today actually spurred. I've got another topic, but I decided to talk about this today because of something that happened with this guy over the weekend. So I received the Bestech Bison in a 2-pack from the Pass Around group, which is it's a group that I'm involved with where manufacturers send knives for all of us to review, and as soon as we're done, we pass them on to the next reviewer. And I love Bestech. You know, Bestech kind of syncs up with my philosophy on good action, good ergonomic designs, a good simplistic structure, good overall carry profile. You know, they have got a lot of models that really speak to me. Not always in aesthetics, but they give a lot of choices. They're also made in China, and they use, you know, they've got lines that are more or less expensive. You know, some of them are G10 and D2, and some of them are M390 in titanium or carbon fiber. So they've got good designs that speak to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And I like that about Bestech. One of my favorite budget knives ever has come out of Bestech. This Bison is very compelling. We have not talked about it yet on the channel. Hey, by the way, can you guys tell now why the new lighting and new overhead view is so important to me? Look how much we can fit on the screen now. This is amazing. Just for new people, I do not own all of these. There are thousands of dollars worth of knives on the table. I can't afford all this. Most of this is other people's stuff. But look how much we can get on the table. That's so much fun. Anyways, so I get this knife out and I look at it, and I don't want to ruin the review, but I'm like, is this a titanium frame lock? But it's got D2 steel. I don't know the price on that, but you know, the design is pretty good. Actually, oh boy, the design is really good. Nice smooth edges, big finger choil. That blade, probably only about 145 thousandths at max. Tapers down to a pretty thin edge. It's a nice drop point blade. And you know what? The overall profile is pretty good. I don't know. And so I'm going back and forth on this, and I'm kind of prejudging it based on what I assume the cost is going to be. And we'll go over that in the video. But I'm playing with this thing like I usually do, doing all this stuff. We're watching, my wife and I are watching, well, truthfully, we were either watching Lord of the Rings or we were watching The Great British Baking Show. Don't judge me. If you've never watched it, for whatever reason, it's entertaining. It's not normally my type of TV, but for whatever reason, that's entertaining to me. So anyways, I'm playing with this, and I go to flip it, and I think I go to do this. And whatever happens, I don't know exactly what happened next, but I'm reclined on the couch. The blade ends up whipping backwards and locking out, and I lose it, and it falls straight down into my leg. And I'm in athletic shorts, and I gave myself not a serious, but a decent puncture wound, enough to where I had to go upstairs and get some paper towels, and my wife fortunately did not notice, but if she ever watches this video, she's gonna be like, oh my gosh, you know. And she used to tell me all the time, because this was years ago before we got married, she was like, if you keep playing with those knives, you're gonna get cut. And that's what happens. I mean, I've got scars all over my hands from different just wounds in general from either screwing around and playing with my stuff, or from using a tool really, really hard, like out, on a job site or something, and then slipping. And that's the case, is that when you use your tools, there's a good chance that they will eventually bite you. And I mean, a lot of you are going to know, oh boy, isn't that crazy? Trust me, guys, we will get to this one. This is a mongoose. Beautiful knife. But a lot of you guys are familiar with that saying, is when in the folding knife world, especially in this caliber, the folding knife world, it's not yours until it bites you. And that saying, I believe, is derived from a feeling that develops after you accidentally cut yourself with a knife. Generally, the first thing that happens is you get upset with it, right? Like, for example, it's actually not out here. I have owned a lot of Griptilians. In fact, the Griptilian is the second, in terms of knives that I've owned multiple variances of, I've owned, the only type of knife that I've owned more than Griptilians are XM18s. 23, 24 XM18s, and I think 6 to 8 different Griptilians. So the likeliness of being cut by knives that I've owned multiple variances of is higher, obviously, since I've owned more of them. But let me tell you, I've cut myself with the Griptilian before, but only the Doug Ritter variants. And initially, the first time I cut myself was a pretty good cut. It was, obviously an accident, but I was mad. I was at work and I was like, God dang it, why is it so sharp? It'll just take out this illogical frustration on this tool that's designed to do exactly that. It's been professionally designed to be sharp and stay sharp, right? For as long as you can. So I cut myself, and I wasn't playing with it. It was just something that I was doing, and I put my finger in the wrong place, and I cut myself, and I was like, God dang it. So then I'm mad at it. And then I'm like, well, you kind of come to your senses, and you realize, well, it's not like the thing is an animate object. It doesn't have thoughts. It didn't act maliciously. It was user error, right? I put my finger somewhere where I shouldn't, on a sharpened edge, and it cut me. Okay. But from that point forward, you bet I had a different sense of awareness around that knife. And it's actually, you don't realize it right away, but it's actually in the form of respect, especially if a knife is developed well. Now on the opposite side of that, I'm going to get another knife out here. I am well aware, just looking at the design on this guy, that this is a poorly designed knife. I know preemptively, I have not cut myself with this knife, I've hardly used it, but I know, based on how it locks out, how it feels, the amount of blade play, I know I can't trust that. So if I went out and used this knife and I was using it hard despite knowing that this lock isn't great, the design's not great, and then it folded in on me and cut me, yeah, I'd be mad. I'd be really upset with this knife, and I'd probably throw it, I'd yeet it against the fence. But I wouldn't develop a sense of respect for it. I just wouldn't use it anymore, It was my fault. I was being stupid using a tool that I knew, or in my opinion, was faulty to begin with. You don't develop a sense of respect for something like that. You cut yourself with something like the Manix. In my opinion, the Manix is developed very, very well. I trust that the lock is not going to fail unless I put it under some extreme, unnecessary, hard use or torque. If I cut myself with that thing, it's my fault, and I have before. And initially I was upset, and then I was like, I need to be more careful next time. I need to be cognizant of where the locking mechanism is, where the deployment mechanism is, where my hands are every time I'm opening or closing the knife, right? And then you develop muscle memory around that, newly heightened sense of awareness, with that knife. It's a level of respect you develop with it. That happens to us. And the reason that people say it's not yours till you bite it is until it bites you till you bite it. Obviously, people don't react that way who are sane. When you cut yourself, the normal reaction is not to take a bite out of your knife. No, people say it's not yours till you bite it, and it's because God dang it, I said it twice. Come on, let's get going with this topic. It's not yours till it bites you. And that's because after it does, it teaches you this to be more cognizant, to be aware of its feature. The feature usually is not wrong. It's usually not the thing that's wrong if it was developed. In some cases it is, right? This isn't like a end all be all in this situation, but it bites you. It's usually because you're putting your finger in the wrong place. Most of us study the object, we study the knife, we play with it, practice with it, we feel it, we get used to it, and then we carry it. So after that, if you've determined that it's a good, well-made product, if you cut yourself and it bites you, a reasonable person will come to the conclusion that it was in user error, and then they develop more respect for that thing, and you develop this connection with it, right? That's what happened with this guy. It bit me, and I was, dang it, I was mad. I got to deal with this. I got to go get paper towels, and it won't stop. And it hurt, pain, I mean, all of us, I'd love to say that I'm the toughest guy in the world, but dang it, that hurt, and it stings, and then you go and if you got a cut on your hand, that one right there, that was from a Benchmade 810 Contigo. I was whipping it around and doing all this cool stuff with it, because I was an idiot, it was a long time ago, and I dropped it in midair, blade was out, and I caught it by the blade, and it filleted my finger. Oh, my wife made so much fun of me for that after I had calmed down and stopped bleeding. But at that point I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore with that knife. And I realized that blade is, it's not the sharpest, like the geometry of that blade is not one that emphasizes cutting performance or slicing performance above all of the things. But I definitely had a different level of respect for that thing. And my brain, the primal part of my brain that was like, associates a certain level of danger with any given thing. As far as the Benchmade Contigo and my brain were concerned, my brain was like, Benchmade Contigo is dangerous. You should respect Benchmade Contigo, not try to throw it and catch Benchmade Contigo by the blade. That's stupid. Obviously, that's, technically I'm describing evolution in the most basic form, but that's kind of at a base level what's happening inside your brain. You develop a respect for this, and your subconscious is like, every time I went to my dresser to get that Contigo, my subconscious was like, hey, remember what happened last time? You were throwing it around and you caught it, and you messed up your finger. So don't do that again. And I'm like, I know. Come on, brain, I got this now. That's what's happening. And you develop this sense of respect. And a lot of times that changes how I do a review. A lot of times I check, is there a flipper tab right here that's going to stop the blade from coming down on my finger? Is that there? If it's not there, I can imagine a scenario where I cut myself, and then I would deem that as, especially if it's not passing the detent ball and you kind of have to shake it around. If it puts you in a position where you're having to do extra and risk more and more and more in terms of your fingers, then I determine it as a design flaw, and I don't respect it as much, despite not being cut by it yet. But a lot of us respect our tools, after something like that happens. It's not always getting bit by your tools or, using them incorrectly and having them backfire on you. Sometimes it's a situation where you're doing something, maybe you haven't found exactly the right thing. You're using a knife and you're like, yeah, it's good at a bunch of different things and it's kind of fun to play with, but it's really, I've been using it for this stuff and it's really been okay. And then you go outside and you go to break down a box with it, something that you're going to be doing a lot. And you go to cut, and and that blade glides through it, and it glides through it better than whatever knife you've been using to do that. The knife that I always go to break down my cardboard boxes, which is now mysteriously absent from the location it should be. There it is. I use the Rat because I know I can resharpen it. Flat ground blade. I feel like I've got pretty good control. But if I found a knife that had better ratios, that I felt like was going through that material better, and that was easier to sharpen and maybe held an edge longer. I have no idea. But if I experienced that for roughly the same cost of the Rat, then I'd be like, oh man, this is my new unboxing knife, and I would have exactly that level of respect for that tool from that point forward. And it changes how we feel about certain things. Another example. For me, a massive example of respect that was developed for certain types of knives or certain models, Spyderco knives. You guys know, a lot of you have seen that episode where I say, what's the big deal about Spyderco knives? I did not like Spyderco knives, in the beginning because of how they look. Sorry, I had to shut that drawer. I just didn't like, especially the PM2. Ugh, weird, right? But then I finally got over it and bought one. I was like, I should just experience it and see. And I realized it was, all the lines and the holes and the compression lock, it was all for ease of manipulation. And I developed this level of respect for the design. I was like, well, now I don't really care that they're not the most aesthetically pleasing knives in the whole world. I really like how these function, A lot of times I can even manipulate these with my left hand, even though I'm not demonstrating that perfectly right now. Let's see if I can get a left-handed. Yeah, left hand. I'm right-handed, by the way. And that's the product of a really, really good designer, one that emphasizes utilitarian or benefit manipulation, And I have this new level of respect for all Spyderco knives that wasn't present. A lot of different things that you do with your knives can determine how you feel about them. We make a lot of us, that make a lot of knife purchases online. The only thing that we have to go by is what that YouTube channel guy said about the knife, or maybe like maybe you make an informed decision. You watch a lot of different reviews, you read a lot of different things, and then you save and you make sure that you can afford it. And you do everything that you could, all the different research. You plan out, like, what am I going to do with this knife? Is it appropriate for my? You do everything, right? You're the intelligent voter of the knife buying community of a consumer. You're a rational consumer, so you're less than 2%, I guess. Is that what they say about intelligent voters, is less than 2%? I don't know. But you're that guy, and you buy it, but it's still just based on word of mouth and what you appreciate in aesthetics and what you are theorizing you're going to be using it for and what it's going to be good at. And then you get it, and you're like, it's not any of that after you use it, and the respect goes away. It can definitely go both ways, but there are certain things that you don't come to appreciate until after you use them, or a lot of times after it bites you. Sometimes a knife that will just kind of seem meh, it will demand your attention after it bites you, and the bite will have nothing to do necessarily with its potential for performance. But in this knife's case, it, like, my brain became really like, the bite was, or the poke was just a product of me not using it correctly. But all of a sudden there was this intense focus on this thing, because this is now that knife that poked into me. And then my brain started putting more emphasis on looking over everything, looking over the details of things, because I think my subconscious was like, well, why did I drop it? Was it my fault, or was it the knife's fault? I want to blame the knife, but I think it was my fault. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, holding it right here, actually, that's pretty good. That sometimes that happens. Sometimes that's a product of just a stupid mistake that you make with a cutting tool, or any tool for that matter. But I don't know. I thought this might be somewhat interesting. I thought you guys might be interested or be able to relate to that topic. I feel like most of you have done that with a pocket knife on accident at least once. None of us are perfect. I'm definitely not perfect. You've seen by the scars on my hands that I make mistakes with folding knives and objects with blades far more often than I should. But that's just the way of it. And for the most part, as long as you're the type of person who learns from mistakes, which is very generic, but as long as you're that type of person who learns from their mistakes, oftentimes you're the better for it. A good example of that here is, you can see I have a lot of different styles of knives and a lot of different opening mechanisms and different lengths and geometries and things like that. And just through muscle memory and what I expect from any given design based on how it feels when I pick it up, I can kind of guess how it's going to react. And it's made me more cognizant. It's made me feel a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my gosh, it's such an easy word. It's made me feel more just prepared in general. More confident when I pick up a knife, and I feel better about that. Now, sometimes with too much confidence comes arrogance, and you think that you won't cut yourself because you're really, really good at manipulating a knife, and then you drop it into your leg while you're watching the Great British Baking Show, and then you admit it on camera in front of hundreds or thousands of people. That happens. But anyways, guys, that's going to be pretty much it for today's topic. I hope you guys enjoyed it, or at least found it mildly entertaining. If you did, as usual, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so please check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, then please subscribe to my channel because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.